Ethan Carter had always dreamed of exploring the stars, but nothing could have prepared him for Zephora. As the shuttle descended through the planet's sparkling atmosphere, he pressed his forehead against the window, eyes wide with awe. Below him stretched a city unlike anything he had ever imagined. Towers of translucent crystal rose like giant flowers. Floating platforms drifted gently above glowing canals, and bridges made of light-connected buildings in impossible arcs. Even from this height, he could feel the calm energy of a world that thrived on peace and wisdom. Stepping onto the landing platform, Ethan felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The air was warmer than Earth, filled with a faint hum that seemed to vibrate with life. Citizens of Zephora moved gracefully around him, their skin shimmering in gentle shades of blue, green, and silver. Their eyes were large and bright, reflecting curiosity and intelligence. Some paused to look at him, whispering among themselves in a language he could not understand. Ethan smiled politely, trying to seem confident, though his heart raced with every glance. A small group of Zypherans approached, their leader bowing slightly. Ethan returned the gesture, careful to mimic the slight inclination he had seen in the shuttle's training simulations. The leader spoke in a melodic voice, and one of the group handed Ethan a small device that translated their words instantly. "Welcome to Zephora, human. You are our honored guest," the translation read. Ethan nodded, feeling a mix of pride and disbelief. Humans had never been invited here before. This was a historic moment. As he walked through the city, Ethan marveled at the details. The streets were lined with glowing plants that changed colors with the time of day. People rode on vehicles that seemed to float, powered by thought rather than engines. In the markets, alien fruits shimmered like gemstones and instruments played themselves, creating music that resonated deep in his chest. Every corner of Zephora spoke of a civilization advanced beyond imagination, yet calm, kind, and harmonious. Eventually, Ethan was led to the central plaza, a vast circular space surrounded by crystal towers. In the middle rose a platform of polished crystal, reflecting sunlight in brilliant colors. Citizens had begun to gather, their voices low but excited. Ethan's mind raced. Something big was about to happen, though he had no idea what. A hush fell over the crowd as the central doors of the palace opened. A figure emerged that made Ethan stop in his tracks. She was tall, taller than any human he had seen, with an elegant posture and glowing skin that seemed to shine softly like moonlight. Her eyes were deep and intelligent, holding a calm authority that demanded attention. Her robes shimmered with patterns that seemed alive, twisting like liquid light. The citizens bowed deeply, and even the floating vehicles hovered lower in respect. Ethan felt a gentle pull in his chest, a mix of awe and something he could not explain. The queen walked to the center of the platform, raising her hands slowly, and the plaza fell completely silent. Then she spoke, her voice calm but carrying across the entire city without a device. Ethan's translator repeated the words, but the message stunned him so much he had to blink twice. "Only this human shall be my husband," it said. The plaza erupted in whispers. Ethan's heart pounded as all eyes turned toward him. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words stuck. Why him? He was just an ordinary human, a visitor, a scientist. He had no power here, no influence, no extraordinary abilities that he knew of. Yet the queen's gaze held him steady, her expression neither commanding nor threatening, but certain. A few citizens murmured, their voices filled with disbelief. "A human?" one asked quietly to another. How can she choose him? Some eyes held worry, others curiosity. Yet no one dared to challenge the queen openly. Her reputation for wisdom was legendary. Ethan swallowed hard and stepped forward, unsure whether he should bow, speak, or simply stand still. His mind raced. He had studied alien cultures, but nothing had prepared him for being chosen in front of an entire city. Leora, a young Zypheran assigned as his guide, moved quickly to his side. "Do not fear," she whispered. "The queen sees something in you that others cannot. Just be yourself." Ethan nodded, though uncertainty fluttered in his chest. He looked around at the citizens, their faces full of curiosity, doubt, and hope. Then he turned back to the queen. Her eyes softened, and she gave a slight nod. In that instant, Ethan felt a strange sense of calm. Despite the overwhelming situation, a spark of trust grew inside him. Somehow, he knew that this was only the beginning of an adventure far greater than he had ever imagined. As the plaza slowly quieted again, Ethan realized that everything he knew about life, about humanity and about himself, was about to change. In this world of shimmering towers and floating gardens, he was not just a visitor anymore. He had been chosen. The city's gaze was upon him, the Queen's expectations weighing gently on his shoulders, and somewhere deep inside, Ethan felt a thrill of excitement. This human had been given a place in a world of wonders, and his story was only beginning. Ethan still could not believe what had happened. Being chosen by the alien queen in front of the entire city felt like a dream he could not wake from. He walked beside Leora, the young Zephoran assigned to guide him as they moved through the palace gardens. The gardens were unlike any park on Earth. Trees floated gently in midair, their leaves glowing in soft blues and greens, and small streams of sparkling liquid ran along paths that seemed to sing as they moved. Ethan's eyes kept moving from one wonder to the next, but he tried to focus on Leora's words. "You must understand," Leora said, her voice calm. "The Queen does not choose lightly. Humans are rare here. Most of us have never even met your kind, and yet she saw something in you that no other creature possesses." Ethan frowned slightly. "But I'm just a human. I'm ordinary. Why would she choose me?" Leora smiled softly. "It is not about power, strength, or wealth. She values what humans have deep inside. Your curiosity, your kindness, your willingness to understand others. Those are things we rarely see, even among our own people." Ethan nodded slowly, trying to understand. On Earth, humans were not always seen as wise or patient, but perhaps that was exactly what made them special in the eyes of Zepharans. He remembered the Queen's gaze in the plaza, steady, calm, and filled with certainty. He could see that she truly believed in him, even if he did not yet understand why. They reached a small pavilion where Alethra, the Queen, was waiting. She stood gracefully, as if she had been expecting Ethan all along. Her eyes, deep and luminous, studied him without judgment. Ethan felt a strange mix of nervousness and trust. "Ethan," she said, her voice gentle yet clear, "you may be surprised, but the choice was not made lightly. Humans have qualities that Zyphora has long admired from afar. You are resilient, creative, and capable of compassion even in difficult circumstances. These traits are rare and precious." Ethan swallowed, unsure what to say. I don't know if I deserve this," he admitted. Alethra smiled faintly. "It is not about deserving, but about possibility. You have the potential to build understanding between your people and mine. That is why you were chosen." As they walked through the palace, Ethan began to learn more about Zyphoran culture. Alethra explained their traditions, emphasizing cooperation, creativity, and respect for life. She showed him the palace's libraries, filled with glowing crystals that contained the recorded history of Zephora. Each crystal could project images and voices from the past, allowing Ethan to see and hear the stories of the planet's greatest thinkers, explorers, and leaders. He realized how advanced and yet harmonious this society was. Knowledge and wisdom were valued above all else, and cruelty or selfishness was rarely seen. While Ethan listened, he noticed that some advisors and citizens watched him carefully, their expressions unreadable. A few whispered among themselves, casting doubtful glances in his direction. Leora noticed and leaned close. Some are curious, some are cautious, and some are afraid. They wonder why a human should hold such a place. You must show them not with words, but with your actions. Ethan nodded, though he still felt unsure of what he could do to prove himself. That evening, Ethan attended a formal dinner in the palace. The table was unlike any he had ever seen, stretching in a perfect circle and floating slightly above the floor. Dishes of vibrant colors and unfamiliar textures appeared, each designed to be tasted slowly and appreciated. As he ate, he observed the Zypharans around him. Their conversation was polite, measured, and filled with curiosity. They asked him questions about Earth, its people, and its ways, listening intently as if every word mattered. Ethan answered honestly, sharing stories of human creativity, cooperation, and courage. Some citizens nodded, impressed by the stories, while others raised their brows, skeptical but attentive. After dinner, Alethra led Ethan to a balcony overlooking the city. The lights of Zyphora shimmered like a sea of stars, floating gardens casting reflections on the glowing canals below. Ethan felt a quiet awe, realizing that he had been brought into a world that was both beautiful and complex. "Tomorrow," Alethra said softly, "you will begin learning about our customs and ways more deeply. You will also meet others who may challenge your presence. Some will accept you easily, others will doubt. You must be patient and honest, and you will earn their respect. Ethan nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He thought of the Queen's words, the city's gaze, and the unknown challenges ahead. Somehow, he sensed that this journey was not only about his place in Zephora, but also about showing what humans could bring to the universe. For the first time in his life, he felt that being human was not a limitation, but a strength, something unique and valuable in ways he had never fully appreciated. As the night sky of Zephora glowed softly above him, Ethan realized that his adventure had only just begun. He was no longer just a visitor. He was a part of something greater. He had been chosen, not for power or skill, but for the qualities that made him human. And in a world of shimmering lights, floating gardens, and extraordinary beings, Ethan Carter would have to learn, grow, and prove that those qualities could shine brighter than any technology, brighter than any power, and brighter than even the most advanced minds of Zephora. The next morning, Ethan woke to a soft glow filling his quarters. The palace was alive with quiet energy, and he could hear the distant hum of floating vehicles and singing fountains. Today was different. Today he would face the test of wit, a Zephoran tradition that determined whether outsiders could gain true trust and respect. Leora knocked gently on his door. "Are you ready?" she asked. Ethan took a deep breath and nodded. "I think so," he replied, though his stomach fluttered with nervousness. They walked together to the central plaza where the test of wit was held. The plaza had been transformed for the occasion. Holographic images floated in the air, showing puzzles, moral challenges, and complex patterns. Citizens gathered in silent anticipation. Even those who had whispered doubts about Ethan's presence watched him with curiosity. Alethra stood at the center, her calm gaze encouraging him. "Remember," she said softly, "this test is not about strength. It is about understanding, empathy, and the ability to see solutions where others see only problems." Ethan stepped onto the first platform. The first challenge was simple in concept but tricky in execution. A holographic bridge had collapsed in midair, and he had to find a way to connect it so a group of floating platforms could move safely across. Ethan looked carefully at the pieces and realized the solution required balance, timing, and creative thinking. He adjusted the platforms with precise movements, watching as they locked into place perfectly. The crowd murmured in appreciation. Leora's smile gave him courage, and Ethan felt a spark of confidence. The second challenge appeared as a holographic village in chaos. Citizens of the projection argued and feared for their safety because a river had overflowed. Ethan had to resolve the problem without causing harm to anyone. He studied the scene, observing the patterns of the water and the villagers' reactions. Thinking like a human, he suggested using a series of temporary channels and barriers to guide the water safely away, while calming the villagers and giving them tasks they could manage. The holographic villagers followed his instructions, and soon the flood was under control. Even the most skeptical citizens clapped quietly, impressed by his careful reasoning. The final challenge tested his moral judgment. Ethan was presented with a scenario where two groups disagreed over the use of a rare energy source. One group wanted to use it for immediate comfort, while the other wanted to save it for the future. Ethan had to propose a solution that respected both sides. He paused, considering his human perspective. He suggested a plan that allowed both groups to benefit, distributing the resource carefully while creating a system that encouraged cooperation and shared responsibility. The holographic leaders nodded in agreement, and the crowd erupted in soft cheers. Even Alethra's eyes held a flicker of pride. When the test ended, Ethan felt a mix of relief and wonder. He had succeeded not because he was clever or strong, but because he had listened, observed, and thought with care. He realized that the Zephyrans valued qualities that humans often overlooked: empathy, creativity, and the courage to make fair choices even under pressure. Ethan had brought a human perspective to their world, showing that his kind could contribute meaningfully, even in a civilization far advanced beyond Earth. As the plaza cleared, Alethra approached him. "You have done well," she said. "Not all outsiders would succeed, but you have shown patience, wisdom, and respect. These are qualities we treasure more than power or fame. Today you have earned the beginning of trust not only from me but from those who doubted you." Ethan bowed slightly, feeling a swell of pride and humility. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he said, his voice steady. I will do my best to honor the trust you place in me. Even as the ceremony ended, Ethan noticed the subtle tension among some advisors. A few watched him with narrowed eyes, whispering to one another. Leora leaned close. Some will accept you quickly. Others will wait and see. Do not be discouraged. You have already proven yourself in ways they cannot yet understand. Ethan nodded, realizing that respect was earned gradually, even in a world filled with admiration for knowledge and wisdom. That evening, Ethan walked through the palace gardens again, reflecting on the day. Floating trees shimmered softly, and streams of light traced delicate paths across the paths. He thought about how different Zyphora was from Earth, and yet how some things, kindness, curiosity, fairness, were universal. He understood that being human was not a weakness here. It was a strength, because humans saw the world differently, in ways the Zyphorans had never considered. As he looked up at the twin moons rising over the city, Ethan felt a deep sense of purpose. This was not just about surviving on an alien world or winning approval. It was about showing that humans, even ordinary ones, could inspire trust, solve problems, and bring new perspectives to the universe. Somewhere in the palace, Elithra watched him silently, her expression calm but thoughtful. Ethan knew that this was only the beginning. Challenges would come, doubts would arise, and tests would continue. Yet for the first time, he felt ready to face them. The test of wit had not only proven his intelligence and character, it had shown him the value of patience, empathy, and creativity. It had also taught him that being human was not about being the strongest or the fastest, but about seeing possibilities, respecting others, and acting with integrity. And in that quiet moment, with the shimmering city below and the glowing sky above, Ethan Carter understood that his journey on Zyphora was just beginning, and that the real adventure lay ahead. The morning sun cast a soft golden glow over Zyphora, illuminating the floating gardens and crystal towers in sparkling light. Ethan stepped out into the palace courtyard, feeling more confident than he had the day before. The test of wit had not only tested his mind, but had given him a small sense of belonging. Today, he would spend time with Queen Elithra, learning more about her world and discovering the responsibilities that came with being chosen. Elithra greeted him with a calm smile. Ethan, today you will learn about the heart of Zyphora, she said. She led him through corridors that shimmered like liquid light and into a large observatory overlooking the city. From this vantage point, Ethan could see not only the bustling plaza but also distant floating fields, glowing rivers, and enormous gardens that stretched as far as the eye could see. Our city thrives because of understanding and cooperation, Elithra explained. Every being here contributes in their own way. Soon you will learn to find your place as well. They walked together through the gardens where glowing plants responded to their presence, bending gently as if to greet them. Elithra explained the delicate balance that Zyphorans maintained between nature, technology, and life itself. Ethan listened intently, realizing that the harmony of Zyphora was not accidental. It was a careful effort, a dance of respect and creativity that humans could learn from. As they walked, a group of young Zyphorans approached, curious about the human who had captured their queen's attention. Ethan greeted them politely, and they asked him about Earth. He described forests, oceans, mountains, and cities. The children listened with wide eyes, imagining a world far different from their own. One of them, a boy named Kale, asked, "Do humans also value peace and knowledge?" Ethan smiled. "Yes, though we are not always perfect, but many of us try to understand and help each other." The children nodded thoughtfully, and some even smiled, clearly impressed by his answers. Later, Elithra brought Ethan to the palace workshops, where inventors and artists created remarkable machines and art forms. Robots sculpted crystal statues, machines wove light into fabric, and music was composed by instruments that seemed to play themselves. Ethan was fascinated by the creativity and precision of Zyphoran work. He helped a young inventor solve a small mechanical problem, using simple tools and human reasoning. When the invention worked, the young Zyphoran beamed with pride. Elithra's eyes shone faintly, and she whispered, "See how your perspective brings new possibilities?" Ethan nodded, beginning to understand the subtle ways humans could complement Zyphoran ingenuity. As the day continued, Ethan noticed that not all attention was welcoming. Some advisors and older citizens watched him carefully, whispering to one another. Their expressions were not hostile, but they carried skepticism. Leora leaned closer to Ethan. "There will always be those who question the Queen's choice," she said softly. "They fear change or they do not understand. But you must remain honest and true. That will earn their respect more than any words can." Ethan clenched his fist slightly, determined to prove that humans could indeed be trusted and valued. In the evening, Alethra invited him to a quiet terrace overlooking the canals. The twin moons of Xiphora reflected in the water, casting soft silver light across the city. Ethan felt a peaceful calm he had never experienced on Earth. "Ethan," Alethra said, "you have already learned much about our ways, yet you must also know that some will try to challenge your presence. This is not meant to discourage you, but to teach patience. True understanding is earned over time." Ethan nodded. He had felt the whispers and doubts, but he now realized that this was part of becoming accepted. It was not enough to simply exist in their world. He had to contribute, to show through action that humans could bring value, insight, and care. As he looked across the glowing city, he felt a sense of purpose growing inside him. He would not disappoint Alethra or the people of Xiphora. Before leaving the terrace, Alethra placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Trust is built slowly, but it is stronger than fear. Remember that and you will find your place here." Ethan smiled softly, feeling warmth and reassurance. The day had taught him that respect and friendship were not given automatically, even by those who were curious or kind. They were built through patience, understanding, and shared experiences. As night fell, Ethan walked back to his quarters, reflecting on the events of the day. He realized that being chosen by the Queen was more than an honor. It was a responsibility. He was a bridge between humans and Xiphorans, and the choices he made would matter. At the same time, he felt excitement for the challenges ahead. He was learning a new world, building trust, and discovering the unique qualities that made humans valued, even in a civilization far more advanced than his own. Ethan lay down that night, thinking about the floating gardens, the shimmering canals, and the people who had begun to see him as more than an outsider. He understood that trust, patience, and honesty were just as important as courage or intelligence. Tomorrow would bring new lessons, new opportunities, and perhaps new challenges. But for the first time, Ethan felt that he truly belonged in Xiphora, not just as a visitor, but as someone who could make a difference. The morning air in Xiphora carried a crisp energy, as if the city itself sensed that something important was about to happen. Ethan had spent the previous days learning about the culture, the city, and the people. He felt more confident now, yet a quiet tension lingered. Some citizens still watched him with doubt, whispering quietly whenever he passed. He knew that being chosen by the Queen brought admiration, but it also brought scrutiny. Today, that scrutiny would become more direct. In the central plaza, Alethra awaited him. Her calm presence reassured him as she explained the situation. "Ethan," she said, "there are those who question your place here. Some wish to challenge your presence, to test whether a human can truly contribute to our world. You must face this with patience and clarity, using honesty and creativity rather than force." Ethan nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. He had already faced the test of wit, but this was different. This challenge would not be controlled or designed. It would come from the people themselves. Shortly afterward, a small crowd gathered near the city's energy hub, where a malfunction had caused a temporary disruption. Machines that powered the floating platforms were stalling, and citizens were growing concerned. The chief engineer, an elderly Xiphoran named Velen, looked troubled as he explained the issue to Ethan. "The system is complex," Velen said. "We cannot locate the problem quickly, and the delay frustrates the citizens. They will expect a solution even from you." Ethan studied the hub carefully, noticing the subtle patterns in the energy flow and the interactions between the machines. He realized that the solution required a combination of logic, observation, and simple adjustments. Taking a deep breath, Ethan began to analyze the system. He noted which platforms were stalling and which components were overheating. Using simple tools and his human intuition, he adjusted connections, realigned circuits, and suggested a minor redistribution of energy that would balance the load. The process required patience, and several curious citizens gathered to watch. Some whispered doubts, but Ethan ignored them, focusing on the task at hand. After several tense minutes, the floating platforms began to move smoothly again. The citizens watched in amazement as the problem was resolved, without any disruption or harm. Velen approached Ethan, his eyes reflecting respect. "I underestimated the perspective you bring," he admitted. "Your approach was thoughtful and effective." Even some of the skeptical advisors nodded quietly, their whispers fading into approval. Ethan felt a surge of quiet pride, knowing that his human perspective had solved a problem in a way Zephorans had not expected. Later, Alethra joined him in the plaza, her calm eyes reflecting a faint smile. "You see, Ethan, the true value of being human is not in strength or skill alone, but in creativity, patience, and the ability to approach challenges differently. Today you have proven that these qualities can inspire trust and respect, even among those who doubted you." Ethan bowed slightly. "I am grateful for the opportunity," he said. "I only hope I can continue to contribute." Alethra's smile deepened. "You already have, in ways that matter." As the day continued, Ethan observed the subtle shift in the citizens' attitudes. The young ones who had been curious were now openly friendly, asking questions and seeking his guidance. Adults who had doubted him nodded respectfully when he passed. Even Velen, the chief engineer, invited him to assist with further projects, showing that trust was growing. Ethan realized that respect and influence were not demanded. They were earned through patience, honesty, and action. That evening, he returned to the palace gardens, where Alethra awaited him. The floating trees shimmered softly under the twin moons, casting gentle reflections on the crystal paths. "Ethan," she said, "do not be surprised if challenges continue. Some will always test you, but you have shown that being human allows you to think differently, solve problems, and act with integrity. These are strengths that will serve you well." Ethan smiled, feeling a warmth he had not known before. He had come to Zephora as an outsider, uncertain and hesitant, but now he was beginning to understand his place in this world. As he walked among the glowing plants, Ethan reflected on the day's events. He realized that being chosen by the Queen was not only an honor, it was a responsibility to show the value of humans to an entire civilization. Each challenge, each problem, and each interaction was an opportunity to prove that qualities often overlooked on Earth, patience, empathy, and creativity, could make a real difference. The city around him shimmered with life, yet he felt calm, knowing that he was learning, growing, and building trust in ways that mattered. By the time Ethan returned to his quarters, he understood a simple truth. Respect and friendship were not given freely, even by those who admired him. They had to be earned through careful thought, honesty, and action. Today he had begun that journey. Tomorrow would bring new experiences, more learning, and perhaps more challenges, but he felt ready. For the first time, Ethan Carter truly understood that being human could inspire change, even on a world far beyond Earth. And with that thought, he lay down beneath the softly glowing ceiling of his room, feeling a quiet confidence that the adventure he had begun was only just unfolding. The day of the ceremony of unity arrived with a soft, golden light that bathed Zephora in warmth. Ethan woke early, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Today would be a celebration unlike any he had ever experienced, a gathering of citizens, leaders, and visitors, all witnessing the joining of two worlds through trust, understanding, and respect. He dressed carefully in the attire provided by the palace, a lightweight uniform that shimmered faintly in the light, reflecting the colors of Zephora. As he stepped into the central plaza, Ethan's eyes widened at the sight before him. Thousands of citizens had gathered, their glowing forms filling the air with movement and energy. Floating platforms carried musicians playing instruments that produced music from thought, while delicate ribbons of light arced through the sky, weaving patterns that told stories from Zephoran history. Ethan felt awe sweep over him. This was a city alive with art, technology, and life, celebrating not just a ceremony, but the possibility of unity and understanding. Alethra appeared at the center of the plaza, her presence commanding yet gentle. She wore a robe of flowing light, shimmering with colors that shifted as she moved. Her eyes found Ethan in the crowd, and she offered a small, reassuring smile. Ethan stepped forward, feeling the weight of expectation yet trusting the bond that had begun to grow between him and the Queen. Citizens watched quietly, their curiosity mixed with respect, waiting to see how this human would participate in their sacred ritual. The ceremony began with a series of displays. Holographic images floated above the plaza, showing scenes of cooperation, learning, and exploration. Musicians created harmonies that resonated with the hearts of the crowd, and dancers moved in elegant patterns, celebrating life and unity. Alithra raised her ha, and then the music softened. She spoke with a voice that carried to every corner of the plaza, clear and calm yet powerful. Today, she said, we celebrate not only the joining of one human with Zephora, but the joining of two worlds. Understanding and trust are the greatest gifts we can share, and today we witness the beginning of a new chapter. Ethan felt his heart pound as the crowd's attention focused on him. He had never spoken before so many beings at once, yet he drew strength from the lessons he had learned over the past days. He stepped forward and spoke from the heart. I am honored to be here, he said. I have come from a world far away, but I have seen the kindness, creativity, and wisdom of Zephora. I hope to learn, to share, and to build trust between our worlds. Together, humans and Zypherans can explore, learn, and create in ways neither of us could alone. The crowd listened silently. Then slowly, a wave of applause and admiration moved through them. The young and old, the curious and cautious, all recognized the sincerity and courage in Ethan's words. Alithra's eyes sparkled with approval, and she took his hand gently. The symbolic gesture was not about ownership or power. It was a promise of partnership, respect, and shared purpose. Together they stood in front of the city, representing a future where understanding and friendship transcended species and planets. As the ceremony continued, citizens were invited to participate. They released ribbons of light into the sky, each representing their hopes for unity, curiosity, and growth. Ethan watched as the city glowed with thousands of colors, each one unique yet blending harmoniously with the others. He realized that this moment was bigger than himself. It was about inspiring the people to see what could be possible when fear and doubt were replaced with trust and openness. Later, Alithra led Ethan through the city, introducing him to individuals who had been skeptical before. Many shook his hand, asked questions, and offered congratulations. Ethan listened, shared stories, and offered solutions to small problems, showing that humans could contribute in meaningful ways. Slowly, the city's attitude shifted. Where there had been doubt, there was curiosity. Where there had been caution, there was respect. Ethan understood that being human meant showing not only intelligence but also patience, empathy, and honesty, qualities that resonated even in a world far beyond Earth. By evening, the celebration moved to the palace gardens, where floating lanterns created paths of light above streams and crystal walkways. Alithra and Ethan walked together, feeling the quiet satisfaction of a day well spent. Citizens laughed, shared stories, and enjoyed performances that blended art and technology in extraordinary ways. Ethan looked at the people around him and realized that he had become part of something greater, a community, a civilization, a vision of unity that reached beyond any single individual. As night fell, Ethan stood with Alithra on a balcony overlooking the city. The floating gardens glowed softly under the twin moons, and the citizens' lights twinkled below like stars brought to life. Alithra spoke quietly. You have done well today, Ethan. Not because you are human, but because you chose to act with honesty, care, and respect. That is what has inspired the people. Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment and belonging. He had not only been accepted, but he had also shown that humans could be a force for understanding, creativity, and trust. In that quiet moment, with the city shining around them and the ceremony complete, Ethan understood that this was only the beginning. The ceremony of unity was more than a celebration. It was a promise of the future, a future that humans and Zypherans could build together, one choice, one act, and one shared idea at a time. And for the first time, Ethan truly felt that he belonged not just as a guest, but as a valued participant in the wonders of Zephora. The days after the ceremony of unity passed with a gentle rhythm, full of learning, discovery, and shared effort. Ethan had become a familiar presence in Zephora, moving through the glowing streets and floating gardens with growing confidence. Citizens no longer whispered doubts. Many greeted him openly, curious to learn from the human who had earned the trust of the queen and the city. Alithra watched him with quiet pride, seeing how he adapted, learned, and shared his unique perspective in ways that strengthened the bonds between their worlds. Ethan began working with the city's inventors and scientists, offering ideas that were simple yet effective. His suggestions, drawn from human ingenuity, often solved problems that had puzzled the Zifferans for years. He showed them how to combine their advanced technology with practical solutions, and in doing so, created bridges between two very different ways of thinking. Alethra sometimes joined him, discussing ideas late into the luminous evenings, and Ethan realized that their partnership was growing stronger, not because of titles or ceremony, but because of mutual respect and shared purpose. One morning, a group of young Zifferans approached Ethan and Alethra with a new project. They wanted to create a network of floating gardens that could connect distant parts of the city, providing fresh food and beauty while inspiring cooperation. Ethan studied their plans and suggested minor adjustments that would make the gardens more stable and efficient. The young citizens followed his guidance eagerly, and within hours the first sections of the network were completed. Seeing their success, Ethan felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He realized that human creativity, when combined with Zifferan intelligence, could produce wonders neither could achieve alone. Word of Ethan's contribution spread across the city, and even the remaining skeptics began to nod in approval. They had once questioned why a human should hold a place of influence, but now they saw the value of his ideas, his patience, and his empathy. Ethan understood that trust was earned not only through grand gestures, but through small, consistent acts that demonstrated care and integrity. Each day he was building bridges between humans and Zifferans, and each act inspired more citizens to embrace collaboration and curiosity. One evening, Alethra invited Ethan to a quiet terrace overlooking the glowing canals. The twin moons reflected in the water, creating a serene panorama. "Ethan," she said softly, "you have done more than I could have imagined. You have proven that humans can bring new ideas, new perspectives, and new hope to Zephora. Your presence has changed not only our city, but also the way our people see the universe." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest, realizing that his journey had transformed him as much as it had transformed the city. "I never expected to be part of something like this," he admitted. "I just wanted to learn, and now I see how much humans and Zifferans can achieve together." Alethra smiled. "That is the essence of unity. When we see each other's strengths and work together, the possibilities are endless." As the weeks passed, Ethan and Alethra continued to explore ways to strengthen the bond between their worlds. They organized educational programs, shared knowledge, and encouraged collaboration in art, science, and technology. The city thrived, citizens inspired by the partnership between a human and their queen. Where there had once been doubt, there was curiosity. Where there had once been caution, there was trust. Ethan realized that being human meant more than strength or intelligence. It meant offering empathy, creativity, and a willingness to learn and share. One afternoon, Ethan and Alethra stood together on the highest tower of the city, looking out over the floating gardens, shimmering towers, and glowing canals. The sky above glowed with soft colors, reflecting the vibrant energy of Zephora below. "Look at what we have built together," Alethra said. "It is only the beginning. There is much more to learn, explore, and share." Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of wonder and responsibility. He had come to Zephora as a visitor, uncertain of his place. Now he knew he was part of something far greater, a bridge between worlds, an example of what humans could offer to the universe. That night, as the city shimmered under the twin moons, Ethan reflected on his journey. From the moment the Queen had chosen him, he had faced uncertainty, curiosity, and subtle doubt. Yet through patience, honesty, and action, he had earned the respect of a civilization far more advanced than his own. He realized that the qualities humans often take for granted, kindness, curiosity, and creativity, were exactly what made them extraordinary in the eyes of other worlds. Ethan understood that his story was not just about being chosen or celebrated. It was about showing that humans could inspire trust, solve problems, and bring hope even in the most extraordinary circumstances. As he stood beside Alethra, looking at a city that glowed with life, he knew that their partnership was not an ending but a beginning. Together, humans and Zifferans could explore the stars, learn from one another, and build a future filled with understanding, creativity, and friendship. And in that quiet, luminous moment, Ethan felt a deep truth settle in his heart. Being human was a gift, not for power or fame, but for the ability to connect, to understand and to inspire. On Zephora, among shimmering towers, floating gardens, and wise citizens, he had found his place, and in doing so had shown that the smallest acts of courage and kindness could create a new era for two worlds.